All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Um, my name is Chinua Ezenwa-Ohaeto, and I'm currently uh, a PhD student at University of Nebraska Lincoln. And my book, The Naming, just got published in December 2025. And I was looking for, communities, places to read, and John introduced me to this, and I'm very grateful. And since I joined, I have met wonderful poets and people, who have been reading to us, sharing their works. So for this book, the naming, it's about the ethnic group of, where I come from in Nigeria. That and it's a way of speaking to them. And normally people will ask me, when you say you speak to your ancestors, do they respond back to you? Because that's when you will say that a communication is complete. When you speak and the other person responds, that's a complete communication. But for the Igbo people, yes, our ancestors respond, but they do it through a medium, someone who could actually hear them, who could be in their, leave the human realm to the spiritual realm and get the information and give it back to you. But for this book, I wrote it from the angle of speaking to them alone without hearing a feedback from them, you know. So, but in my next book, that would be kind of the response, a feedback, from them. So to speak to them, you have to do some, some prayers or some incantation for them to hear you. And whenever you hear the word one name, one name is an Igbo word, a Nigerian Igbo word, which means my brother, my sister, my cousin, my relation, anyone. Like, is a way for us to say, you are me and I am you. We are the same because we have blood running in us. You know. So that's how we say it in our place. So anytime I use the word one name, kinsman, it means my brother, my sister, my friend, and all that. So I will start by reading a poem, you know, which I wrote about my father. It's titled Memorabilia. One night, after I turned 19 years old, I dreamt. I was sitting in a bar with my father. We rattled about the reeds at home, the things he had missed. When I looked him in the eyes, I found the shrinking thing. The first time I saw the shrinking thing was when he had been down with cancer and looked eaten from the inside. He started growing distant. Each day, my father was gradually pulled away from me, from us. Then he traveled towards health, towards work, towards Cambridge. He was a father and had to do fatherly things. And that was the last time he sent me to buy some newspapers, sent me to wash his car, sent me to clean his boots. At 30, I saw my father again in my dream. I told him that people, on hearing what I do, often say, "In this country, you mean you are a poet?" My father smiled at me after listening and said, "Flowers never grow knives. The world can only adjust for you." Today, I am in my father's jacket. Putting it on feels like I'm having a conversation with him, like we are in a field holding hands and watching butterflies bounce in the air and land on calla lilies. The next poem is titled The Story of Chinua. My full first name in full is Chinua. The story of Chinua not looking for anything with his lazy eyes. I cherish the moment I awaken each morning to find myself beside my wife as if for the first time. I live in a period when people no longer understand patience, but I know what it means. For it is said that a man with patience is favored and a fortunate one, and understands that there is nothing beautiful in a history's blackout. The yams and cassava in our farm, planted by my hands, beg the soil for the meaning in the gaps of movement and living, begs for the meaning of my handling, and think I do not know, but I know. My sister has been a handle to my growth. When we were children, she taught me how to play cook with things found in trash cans and how to tend to babies made out of discarded cloth. Without my sister, I wouldn't have known what it means to sibling, to childhood and brim with stars. I wouldn't have known what it means to stretch out a hand in the dark and find. Everything changes. This I know. But what exactly changes everything? The story of me not looking for anything with my lazy eyes goes that I actually do not have lazy eyes, but possess a particular way of not risking the things I see. Everything and everyone and every day keep combing my body so that it knows well enough and long enough both fullness and loss. So the next poem is about the Igbo landing. Like I said, I'm from the Igbo tribe in Nigeria. And sometime in 1803, they were taken as slaves and brought to the United States at Dunbar Creek on St. Simon's Island, Georgia. And when they got to that land, they decided not to be taken as slaves and drowned themselves as a way to revolt. So I wrote a poem about that. And the title of the poem is Marley's Lyrics in Two Parts, or Where Does It Hurt the Most? After the Igbo landing, 1803. Part 1. At Dunbar Creek on St. Simon's Island, Georgia, your voices, our fathers, still sing. Home. Home is where we belong. Water spirits will take us home. Sometimes history is cruel. And in this moment, I imagine that when you were moored in the schooner York heading to Dunbar by the sea, the fishes that had your wailings shocked at their fins and pectorals. Above the seagulls that flew past took to the sea waves the horrible things they saw happening to you. Even the wind itself bore witness. And Roswell King, with his own eyes during the landing, saw 75 bodies in the openings of history. You were great elephants of our land, our fathers, and refused to be wrongly named, wrongly placed, refused to be the property of Cooper and Spalding. You understood the weight of knowledge and courage and chose not to be transactions priced at $100 each for forced labor. Our fathers, you chose not to be taken less, not to be forgotten. If I could, I would accost the deck of the schooner York that held you, our fathers, to hear how it succumbed to your bravery, to the kindred spirit that seared your bones, your unyielding chants that rose from your throats. I want to know everything about you, because knowing arms me well enough to not forget where the tiger reign started beating history and where it stopped. Part 2. My uncle, one evening, told me how his great uncle left one day and never returned. And word had he was captured, chained, iron marked on the chest, and turned into the property of Mr. Winterbottom. History is a privilege and volumes of poetry. I can only imagine the immense burden it placed upon my uncle's great uncle's father on receiving words about his son, the heaviness, the bitterness, the agony. For days, he lingered by the door waiting for his son's return. In my mother's place of birth, a story goes that one Ada lost her arm at Badagry Port, tearing it free from the shackles that bound her. She refused to be owned to be a thing at a master's command. The story has it she died from blood loss while running for safety. I imagine her blood, its trails up to the point where she collapsed, screaming, I refuse to be chained. I refuse to be taken. I go to the shores of our village river, searching for the memories it holds. I go to the shores of our village river and pointing at history. I want to know where it hurts the most. The gift. My grandma, before she died, before her bed swallowed what was left behind on her skin, gifted me a jar, blue and lined with white. She said I would find life's disturbances inside it, and that I should look inside and speak with it as often as I could, because it would enable me to gain the eyes to see whatever is coming behind me. My grandma died many years ago. Since then, I have experienced a lot of things which I never saw coming. Like a neighbor's dog that I took on a walk, it broke off its leash and dashed for the grove. Like the day I woke up and heard my brother was hit by a motorbike. Like the day I studied for hours and failed an exam in 1 hour. Like last month when my inaccuracy cost my soccer team to a defeat. Like 2 weeks ago, my oversight at my job's inflow had me fired. Like yesterday, while climbing down the stairs, I stumbled down and broke my arm. So many things I didn't see coming. I am holding the jar my grandma gifted me and trying to figure out the ways I haven't found any life's disturbances inside it. The ways I haven't spoken to it well enough to understand why it has not yet enabled me to gain the eyes to see the things that are coming behind me, which have now done me a few damages. The next poem is titled Teaching My Nephew. And I wrote this poem when my sister, her first time giving birth, to her son. My sister and her baby once homed with me when I was a bachelor. It was late evening, and it dawned on us that we needed to placate our stomachs. My sister handed me her baby and went into the kitchen to make some food. I had my sister's baby in my arms and close to my chest. My heart beat him out of sleep. I cuddled him so my sister would not think a pinch happened. My sister worried a lot then. Maybe it was a thing that came with having a baby for the first time. My heart was always heavy, heavy with the things I carried in this small life. I wanted to teach her baby a thing or two about the heavy things I carried. Perhaps teach him about gardens surrounding a bush, or teach him that every one of my heartbeats is not a wince or a wound, or teach him how things are never straight, how things could be a flower one night and something else another night, or teach him that there are things that come with growing up. But I knew he would not understand, and I could not speak Tata, Gugu, Gaga. So I planted my thick lips on his cheek and hoped it would teach him a thing or two instead. The second part of this book is titled Worries, and these worries are about the issues I'm experiencing, my country are experiencing. The issues my country is experiencing, and there are a lot of issues, but I'll start with this one, which is actually, bringing me close to my home. The teenager who became my mother, after the teenage mother from Olu who survived the unknown gunmen. The teenager who became my mother and who for 2 months survived the unknown gunmen had her way of feeling, seeing, and hoping. It was her zeal that rafted her and her unborn child through the blood orange fire that sized into the skies. Our father's fathers, she had a black rimmed skin that shimmered more than coal and bronze mask, a cascade of courage never falling asleep in the sun. She was not one eyed or one lipped, but wet with the river's hymns. Her hairs were strands of broken happiness and loneliness. Her viscera, patient as optimism and plan. And each of the scars on her back was a memory. When I asked if she saw anyone die during the raids, she moved her head up and down. She said she saw 5, 20, and even more. That some of them drowned before her eyes. That every day survived was accosted by gunshots. That the thing anyone didn't want to become was a target. I looked into her eyes after she had told me about her ordeals, risk, and the rainy nights she called under a tree and saw the teenager who braved everything. She was a graveyard to them who drowned before her eyes, and a mother who wanted her child to not look anything like the towns of smoke. What they say I do not carry well. After the raid in the outskirts of Imo State in Nigeria, our fathers' fathers, they say I do not carry my place well because it smells of blood and ruin, the kind left behind on the departure of men with heavy guns. Many times I do want to know what God thinks of it. If he still remembers the love and care in the promise he placed on its borders. If he can see the people on it now, bashed, broken, and weary. People with perforated lives, people with specks of dust covering their brows, people with sores in their dreams, people who eat with their appendices to survive, people whose sisters and brothers never lived to see another dusk. After an evening of flying bullets covering the ground in red and smokes. Sisters died in one afternoon. They had only gone to the market for food. Their voices, swelling with songs, were put into silence. Brothers' hearts became canvases of pains and fear. They were in the field playing football until their bodies were forced to disobey gravity. Every morning, I hold the map in my hands and paint butterflies on it to make it easier for me to remember the lost names from the others. Last night, I saw a wallpaper of Bob Marley. His covered dreadlocks like a halo made him saintly. Bob's eyes reminded me of his music, so messianic, every one of them. I wish to talk to him and let him know how his lyrics lay bare here, bare like the sea, like raw, uncut scenes from a movie. I wish to see him and listen to what he thinks of my place. But tell me, our fathers' fathers, am I born for this disaster that smells of death? Even Christ begged his father to prevent his suffering at Gethsemane. Dear God, I want to carry my place well. Or maybe you live here just for one day. The next poem, A Dead Son Does Not Answer the Phone. On January 16th, 2016, 2 bombs exploded at the University of Maiduguri, Nigeria, killing about a lot of people in 2016 in Nigeria. The ground shook somewhere in Maiduguri. Hundreds feared dead, said a reporter from an old radio sitting nearby. A woman in the market caught the reporter's words. She abandoned her customers and reached for her phone, held together with robbers. She dialed. It rang. No answer. Two, three balls of sweat ran down her forehead. She dialed again. It rang. Po, po, po. Slower and longer to her pounding heart. Hello, Mama, the son said on picking up. The woman rattled. I just heard from the radio that there was a bomb blast over there. Are you okay? I am fine, Mama, said the son. I am fine. In this place, we know too many losses. Every day, people are running for safety. All news is accompanied by something horrible. People forcefully pulled away from their bodies. The next one is titled The World Will Never Run Out of Bad News. It is after the NSAS protests. So, I think in 2020, there was a protest by the Nigerian youths. We all came out in droves, in protesting against the government about the bad government ruling, the bad things, the harassment, you know, like we were demanding for a country to be good to us, for it to be run well, and it ended up to a kind of massacre. The government sent soldiers to shoot the youths that were protesting peacefully. Sometime in 2020, the NSAS protest hit a climax. People demanded for a country free from abuse and harassment. A boy in dreadlocks with a tattoo and on a bus was asked to step down and then taken to the police station on the account of looking like a thief, a weed plug, and a fraudster. One evening, a university girls' hostel was raided, and some girls were put in cuffs without any explanation. Some, whose privacy was invaded, were tagged sex workers. Their debit cards were confiscated and only returned after they were forced to make transfers to an unknown bank account. I know this too, because I was once stopped on the way out of my compound and was gumboted for asking for a search warrant. During the protests, our fathers, people were killed as they waved the flag of their country, as they requested accountability, as they showed how their hearts carried the weight and traces of mistreatment and exploitation, and other people who were nowhere close to this scene of this abomination. Some residing abroad came online and said that nobody died, that no life was lost. I do not know which was worse, the murders or the denials. The world will never run out of bad news, but we must not forget these people who were killed, and we not forget them and why they died. To forget is akin to killing them a second time and many times over. And in 1967, Nigeria experienced a civil war. So this poem is about it. The civil war lasted for 3 years, 1967 to 1970. As the title of the poem is, as seeing is a kind of brightness. Nigerian Biafran War in retrospect, 1967 to 1970. Remembrances are sometimes dazed lilies, sometimes laughter and smiles, sometimes regrets and losses. Many months ago, as we sat together at the balcony one evening, you, kinsman, told me of the hurt that has weighed heavily on your heart to this day. I can see it in your eyes and hear it in your voice. It still stings, sharper than iodine on an open wound. Now, you dream and see field flowers in sepia. You feel the rise and fall of hostility in the eyes of those you betted and in the hearts of those they betted too. Remembrances are sometimes strung together by missiles and grenades and tanks. They wake fathers every morning with fear and retribution. They sing lullabies to mothers every night with dread and terror. That particular day, when your school suddenly closed down, it was 1968. The air was filled with sirens. Your teacher hid under the class table, her hands clasped in her ears. Your classmates scaled through the windows and scampered for the door out. You were 8 years old and hurried home through the screaming crowd and stampede, through burning and smoking streets, through blistered walls and opened bodies, everywhere turning into atrophy and ruins. On opening the door into your house, there was your father, still in a corner, staring at you with shocked eyes. He was drenched in his blood, with a knife stuck in his head. In another corner was your mother with her tummy wide open, and your brother, no, your sister, sleeping out, still corded to her. You ran outside, running, and cursing into the air till no more words were left in your voice. Many years have gone by, and everything that happened that day is still green in your head. As seeing is a kind of brightness, you wonder how you lived all these years, bearing the heavy memory and loss, bearing on your lips, never again to fire, never again to blood and death. Um, this poem is about the Darien Gap, you know, regarding migration on Africans dying on crossing Darien Gap to reach the United States. The title of the poem, At the Darien Gap. Dear kinsman, one name. You remember Obinna, the son of Ebierika? Yes, that's the one. Our fathers' fathers. Obinna's mouth now wants to forget the breadth of this country, forget how he once rolled into it and swallowed its lynching reins. Because it has become a tiger reign, because it has become a tiger, tigering the people in it. What place kills the things and people in it? What place burns into ashes and says that one is an embodiment and the reflection of things cracked and squashed? One time, a boy saw Obinna and stuffed his greetings into his back pockets. Two hots on a boiling spot are never unlike bows and will never attract. This country does not know how to hold the people in it. Histories stitched in loops. It fills dreams with flowers grown at the graveside, truckload of broken stars. It has no name for yesterday's reflection and today's possibilities. No full stop. At the Darien Gap, Obina's legs wants to forget the meaning of run. Run. Run is not a verb. Run is a name for projected safety, a name for stars and moon. At the Darien Gap, his tongue wants to lose the taste of this country, lose the taste of its metals that spread into mass graves. For what place folds its nights and day into litanies of griefs? What place grows people backwards, grows fires and shells? And words from its news headlines, radios and televisions are lists of founds and unknown limbs and bones. This country knows too much loss. It knows corridors in red, knows walls graffitied by mangled bodies and burnt flesh is the color of baked nectarines. At the Garinda, Obina wants everything wrong with this country as forces, dows at the feet of memories. I think I need a water. Okay. Once upon a time, the teeth. The story about my milk teeth that controlled my innocence goes that at 5, during a play with friends, a thrown punch got 2 milk teeth off my mouth. I watched them sail through the air and land on the ground. I gathered them up and threw them onto the house zinc, a thing children do in this place where we are from. I begged lizards, the tooth fairies of our people, to go for them because they will give me better teeth. Perhaps the ones I could use to trounce bones and decimate stones. Many weeks came and passed, and the better teeth emerged, and I learned many different things to do with them. I learned how to fake toothaches so I could get more care from my parents than I normally received. I learned how to drill at night perfect tiny holes in packets of juice and milk stored in the fridge, and got packaging companies blamed when questioned beyond my lies and tears. I discovered I could win fights by leaving behind teeth marks as gifts and emblems on skin. My teeth did much and even contemplated arrogance. Now, my teeth have become a portrait of margins, calling out the werewolves, gnawing at my existence moon. The actual story about the keloid on Chinua left arm. I told my mother one of the stories because I wanted her to believe I got it from falling off a fence and tearing my skin. My mother told this story to her friends who asked about the keloid at different times they set their feet on the roads leading to our house. I also told my friends another story about the keloids, which they told their friends who had asked me about it, and I refused to open my mouth to them. The actual story about the keloid on my left arm goes that I was bitten by a dog from the next compound on the evening I jumped over the fence to pick some leaves for Moksuk play. I was 6, no, 7. I think I was either 9 or 8. The keloid has become the stories it once wasn't, and the many other stories that follow. I look at the keloid now and I am reminded of the color black. I am about 3 decades old and I now see black not as a color, but as an absence of every other color. Our fathers' fathers, looking at the keloid, I also see the absence of childhood, the absence of open wound, the absence of deductions, and somehow the absence of tears the dog bite brought to my eyes, excepting the pain it caused. The keloid of my arm has become a map of memory, a small hill, and a shiny dome of exigency, and has toned deeper my skin color where it sits. Running my finger across the keloid, I realize it is not a shame or blame, and something that does not give an outline for what isn't living in it. Running my fingers across the keloid, I see a history that gives an outline so as not to be forgotten. Colors. Our fathers' fathers, I have a story about colors. In this story, I am 29 and watching my nephew fill his picture book with crayons. It's like witnessing allomophs doing their things with muffins. He breaks a crayon, then picks another. He reminds me of when I was his age. It was late evening, and my picture book was filled with dinosaurs, the kind I saw in movies and would never see in real life. I held the yellow crayon and used it all over an outlined styracosaurus. I was crayoning carefully so I wouldn't miss a spot. I wanted the filling space shiny and bright like a desert. Yellow reminds me of this village. Its golden afternoons merge people with their shadows and dents. nights, and the corrugated rooftops below their half dreams. Green crayon. I wrapped my fingers around a green crayon into position and ran it over an outline allosaurus. Green reminds me of my family's farm, which is no more. My family's farm got eaten by spillages, the carelessness of people with big torchlights. My family's farm, hectares of plants and vegetables and trees, hectares of greens. My family's farm had cassava ridges, cocoyam ridges, and mounds with sprouting corns. It also had an obeche tree, the lady of circumference, space, and shade, amongst other trees, which I was fond of because my aunt told me the trees was planted by my great-great-grandfather, whom everyone believed I don't look like. When done with the green crayon, I picked a red one and ran it over the body of an outlined velociraptor. Though I did not like the red crayon or the red color, it brightened the picture book. Red reminds me of blood, like the one I saw on the television during a news hour. A terrible sight it was. A group of masked individuals videoed themselves unhooking a head from its body. Then blood pumped into the air, pumping and pumping, just like that. For a week, this scene filled me with nausea, gave me a heavy head. Red reminds me of my wounds, like the one, now keloids and the mark of presence and absence I sustained on falling off a mango tree and fences. Red reminds me of things, anger, dying, crashes, openings, theorem of deduction. But today, I try to think red as flowers, as mornings, full of yawns and scents and calm. Black. I picked a black crayon, held it into position, and ran it over an outline Ankylosaurus. It was almost night, and crickets were beckoning home parents, traders, drunkards, gossipers, travelers. Black is night to me. Black is when I close my eyes to sleep. Black reminds me of the day I witnessed my sister's eyes filled with shock on connecting her forehead with a wall during a play. Black is also like death to me because it reminds me of graves, graveyards, and emptiness. I first experienced death when my grandmother died, then my grandfather, then my father. Black reminds me of death, black years, black memories, black crayon. With black color, I have realized that to remain close to our dead, we cherish images of them in our heads, pictures and videos. Death makes us protest the fact of death. Is there any logic to death, to grief, to after death? I set the black crayon when done and looked at what I did with the color and the other colors. The marvel I evoked with them evoked me. Is it now time for questions? Should I read one more? Do I have time, Chris?
How about one more? Then we'll do some questions.
Okay, one more. And I'm going to read my favorite poem. And this one is titled Mercy. So the Igbo word here, Chukubikozian, means God, please. So whenever I say Chukubikozian, it means God, please. Chukubikozian, make my wants closer as I go for them. I have learned to ask for your mercy by having mercy on myself. I am open to the grace that begets flourishing until I know sufficiency. I am open to the wisdom of first saying, I am sorry, because it's a greater answer than nailing anger into the wall. I want to have a daughter first, and when she grows, will someday want me to point out the things she may not understand about adulthood. Give me the grace to do the needful, to answer rightly. Chukubikozian, let restraint and patience find me as I find them. so I can teach myself and friends well enough about tenderness. Because give me the grace to live well and with care, even when my pockets and bones are saying otherwise. And if I ever go hungry, do not let anyone feed me poison. It has been long I stopped blaming the robin shooting night nails at me. It has been long I stopped blaming the arrows opening my healed wounds. I want to welcome the breeze in the field into my home. I have figured out how much of your light I need to unravel the serpents, untooling the gearbox of my beauty. Chukubikosian, I want to have an unmatchable steez. I want to have money, just enough money to match the steez. I promise to not shame my enemies or anybody with it. I only want to live well. Chukubikosian, I want to live well because I deserve to live well and afford good things. Chukubikosian, Bikosian. That's all. Thank you.